Hello and welcome to Thought for September the 3rd. Our readings are 2 Kings chapter 8, Lamentations chapter 4 and 2 Corinthians chapters 1 and 2. And our thought is, but that was to make us rely on God. We live in an increasingly godless world. People in any kind of difficulty expect their governments to provide and complain when they do not. They are trying to do this in the USA. Governments that are in financial difficulties increasingly have to do this. Indeed, some are being forced to cut back on their services. We started reading Paul's second letter to the Corinthians today, and much of it is quite different in tone to his first letter. He writes of the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our affliction, chapter 1, verses 3 and 4. And it is our responsibility to comfort and help others who are in trouble with the comfort with which we ourselves sense we have been comforted by God, we're told. Paul writes of his own experiences and that we despaired of life itself. Indeed, we felt that we had received the sentence of death, he writes, but that was to make us rely not on ourselves, but on God, verses 8 and 9. So we understand that for some of us, the difficult experiences that challenge us is a time of training that we might more fully rely on God in the future. We reflected on events over the past 7 decades. As a child of the 50s and 60s, of events fresh after the most devastating war which culminated in the demonstration of the awesome power of the atomic bomb detonated in Hiroshima, and its subsequent loss of life, the world was horrified and awestruck with fear as to what this would mean for our future. So the following 2 decades were worrisome for my parents as to what type of world that their children would inherit. In this same period, more and more drifted away from God. And how few relied on God and were confident God was in control. We are convinced that even more fearful times await this godless world, and we must build up our faith so we possess a spirit that fully relies on God. We must aim to develop the convictions that Paul worked for the Corinthians to enjoy. The last verse of today's chapter says, "We work with you for your joy as you stand firm in your faith." This letter has come down to us. It surely is a message that it is also for us, so let us rely on God. Well, thank you once again for joining us for Thought for the Day, where together we can open up the pages of God's Word, knowing that Word to be a lamp to our feet and a light to our path.